In Australia, there is a group of young people where their childhood crossed the national boundaries and they lived in two different cultures. At home, they inherit their parents' traditional Chinese culture. Outside, they learn about the open culture of Australia. The conflicts brought about by the value of the two cultures have always surrounded their lives. When parents say be obedient and be patient, teachers encourage them to be bold and express themselves. When family emphasizes collectivity and responsibility, society advocates independence and individuality. These young people are trying to find their own balance between these two cultures. This is Sherry. She moved to Sydney with her parents from Beijing when she was 4 years old. For her, growing up meant facing many cultural conflicts, especially when she first arrived in Australia. Many things happened that left a deep impression on her.
When I first came to Australia, I was about 4 years old, and when I first came here, the language wasn't really fluent, so I kind of have quite a bit of hardship about understanding people. I feel a little bit isolated because I don't understand the language that well.
Her story is a microcosm of many immigrant children. After immigration, their sense of identity has changed. In class, they imitate the teacher's accent. On the playground, they try their best to blend in their classmates just to make themselves less special. Now, Sherry has gradually grown up and learned to find a balance between the two cultures.
As I grew older, I sort of find a balance that I don't really need to give up any part of my culture. I can still enjoy my Chinese New Year and other cultural traditions while sort of embracing the multiculturalism in Australia, enjoying Christmas and other Thanksgiving or Easter, those kind of shows. So yeah, kind of just adapting in between.
She no longer regards culture as a kind of conflict, but has learned to grow in difference. This two-way understanding is precisely what makes her unique. In contrast, Max's experience is more like a cultural collision. He moved to Sydney from China until he was 15. At that time, he was already familiar with the cultural environment of China and found it very difficult to adapt to the culture of Australia.
I immigrated to Australia with my parents when I was 15 years old. Also, I have Australian citizenship in Australia. Everyone assumes I'm Chinese. Initially, I felt very comfortable because I didn't know where I actually belong.
At home, he remains humble and polite. At school, he must learn to show himself.
Now I can find my own way of life between the traditional Chinese culture and Australian culture. I can eat both noodles and pasta. I have found a balance between the two cultures, and that makes me very happy.
Now, he no longer pursues integration into a certain culture. Instead, adopts an attitude of understanding and tolerance to accept these two different cultures. Between family and society, he established his own cultural space. Experts point out that these young people who grow up in both cultures, they are undergoing a reshaping of their identity.
This experience of growing up into different cultures has made themselves more inclusive. They have learned to find balance to live in a diverse cultural environment and to be themselves.
When parents emphasize stability, they also learn to find themselves in change. When society emphasizes freedom, they also understand the significance of responsibility and family.
I love to embrace my Chinese side of the culture, but also my identity as an Australian.
Sometimes I think that perhaps our generation is a bridge between two cultures.
Under the influence of two cultures, they became creators. They have shown through their action that cultural differences are not about giving up a certain culture, but about understanding and integration. Up to now, approximately 650,000 Chinese people have chosen to immigrate to Australia after birth. They no longer ask, "Where do I belong?" Instead, it connects the two worlds in its own way.